Fantasy draft season is here and it's almost over. And if you're just jumping in, welcome. Hi, how's it going? We are here to give you the definitive asterisk list of the best 11 sleepers for fantasy basketball for the coming season. Michael Bolton.
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. My name is Josh Lloyd and I recently escaped from Shady Acres, and I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball, on TikTok at redrock_bball, and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free. We are available on all platforms. Now, I gave you the intro, whatever we need to talk about there. I need to give you the real, actual truth here. Yahoo did make their last final adjustment to their rankings board, so I went through and looked at the top 11 guys that I thought were probably the most undervalued. Whether or how you approach this list it's up to you, but I'm going to give you some guidance. You don't have to reach and get these guys, right? They are looking to me to be very strong values, but all it takes is a small change in minutes or production for that not to be the case. The idea of a sleeper as a general rule doesn't exist. We all know every player, but again, if you are new, these are just some names that I think are being a little bit undervalued, or maybe the expectations aren't high enough. At the end of the show, I'm also going to tell you about a bunch of blokes who are sitting on the waiver wire in just too many leagues, and they don't need to be. So check your league, because if they're there, you add them. That's at the end. So again, this is mainly going to cater towards the category league idea, right? But it still does have application in points leagues. These are just guys I think are quite a distance away from what their current rank is. Your league may not draft off Yahoo rank. It might not draft off ADP. It might draft on however the moon aligns. I don't know. I can't account for every one of those circumstances. But with the recent adjustment, I've got to just tell you the guys that I think are sitting in spots that are probably the largest gaps that I've seen. I'm looking at all these guys. There are a couple that I didn't include for a few reasons, but basically it's everyone on this list who I think that there is at least a round and a half worth of value versus the current Yahoo rank versus where I project them, predominantly towards a head-to-head setting. Points leagues we've done, but we did a sleeper points league show not that long ago. This is just to give you the final top 11 guys. I am talking too much. Top 11 guys that I think are probably being a little undervalued, so we might as well do it right now. And I'm going to start in LA, and it is surprising to me to see a Laker who played for the USA in the FIBA World Cup still be somewhat undervalued. And that, of course, is Austin Reeves. Reeves is ranked at 98. 98 over on Yahoo. He was a very clear sort of top 40 guy down the stretch last season. That was a different scenario. LeBron was out. It, at this point, can't be debated that he is the third best player in the Lakers, meaning also that as soon as LeBron or Davis is out, he becomes the second best player in the Lakers. So, not only does 98 look a little bit low at the moment, there's upside for it to be foolishly low, I think. He doesn't generate big defensive stats, but again, when you lean towards either a points league or even a head-to-head category league, those things are very low volume. They are more variable game to game, and it doesn't take much to swing that category. So if you are overvaluing a steal and a block contribution from a player, you might find that you think you're super strong in these categories, but all it takes is one game of a lower schedule or an injury, and it flips on its head. So the fact that Reeves is low in steals and blocks, and he is, does not worry me quite as much in this sort of a situation. I think that he's a top 85 player for this season. And I think that, again, you're getting him at least a round and a half of value if we're going around that new Yahoo rank, which sits at number 98. Let's go from LA. Let's go to Toronto. Got to find something positive about this bloody shithole. Jakob Poole. He is ranked. There are going to be new people watching this. I don't think Toronto's a shithole. It's a running joke. If you're from Canada and you're just watching me for the first time, I deeply apologize. First of all, congratulations on understanding English. Secondly, I apologize. I love Canada. Jakob Poole. He's ranked at 76. And you might think, Jakob Poole? Why would I care about Jakob Poole? 76. That's silly. He's bad at free throws. Yeah, it is. And you know what? You don't care. Yeah, in a Roto league, maybe that's a problem. But if you're the 5% of people playing Roto, you understand that. And it's not to say you can't punt in Roto anyway. It's not as easy or as successful, but it can be done. I think Pirtle's a top 60 player. Big rebound guy, big field goal guy, sneaky assists, scores okay, blocks shots, and I think they'll go up again this season. They're a little bit down because of lack of trying in San Antonio. He's their starting center. I think he's a top 60-ish sort of head-to-head player. And you can get him in the 70s and 80s in a lot of different spots. And when you miss out on the hyped guys, your Chets and the Wembys, or Kesslers, or Jarens, or Miles Turners, or even one of the other guys that's on this list later on, your Pirtle just sort of sits there and he falls. And when you need rebounds and field goals and blocks, he's around very, very often. And there's value in that. He does provide pretty good numbers, usually. Today's episode is it's actually just brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Snap into the NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. NBA, man, we're going to do a show, thanks to FanDuel, based on over-under win totals, award predictions coming in the next 3 to 4 days. So we can go on there, even odds of like what are the odds for teams to make the playoffs. In fact, let's look at our Toronto Raptors. What are the odds for our Raps to get there? Plus 172 to make the playoffs. I'm not sure they're going to be that good, but that's not bad in terms of value. But whatever you want, whether it's NFL or NBA, it's all over there on FanDuel. It's simple and easy to use as well. So go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL, and don't forget to gamble responsibly. Okay, let's move into this next group that we're going to talk about, or next bunch of guys. We're 2 down, 9 to go. I referenced him before. I didn't realize he was coming up so quickly. But we're going to go to Charlotte, and we're going to look at a big man, and we're going to talk about Mark Williams, because he has moved, right? Yahoo, you're chasing me. You haven't caught me, because he was originally ranked outside the top 300, which was very, very laughable. It made no sense. It was insane. It was hey, you want to pay a little bit of attention to what's going on here, right? That was terrible, clearly. Then they bumped him up to about 110. We're not getting better. Still not there. Now they bumped him to 83, and I'm like, you're still not there again. I've got him as a top 65-ish sort of player. And the number one question that people will ask is, who is Mark Williams? Why are you looking at an NPC-generated name player? And the second thing they'll say is, isn't he just splitting minutes with Nick Richards? And A, I can't explain the NPC name. And number two, I'll answer that. Number two and A, what good nomenclature that is. In terms of the minutes, no. I don't believe that he is splitting minutes with Nick Richards. I don't believe that Stephen Clifford will want to play PJ Washington at small ball 5. He did it for 0 minutes last season. And I don't think it's going to be a thing this season. I think Williams is a guy that they want, if they can, to get 30 minutes. He probably won't. He'll probably sit at 27, 28. But he could play 32. They were playing the cockroach Mason Plumlee 33 minutes a night last season. So Williams could get that much. And again, we're talking about head-to-head sort of build. It's not going to be for everybody. And that's why I say you don't reach up. You don't grab Mark at pick 60 because he has to be the guy that you got to get. But when he's ranked at 83 and you can get him around that area and it makes sense with what you do, well, you probably return 20, 30 spots of value there. Field goal percentage guy, I think he blocks more shots than he did last season. Not a terrible scorer. He's not a terrible free throw shooter. I think he's got a little bit of upside in steals as well. I just think, again, there are other guys who you'll get early for the blocks and the big man numbers, and he's in that second wave. And while they have adjusted it nicely up to number 83, I don't believe that they have gone quite far enough. You will notice a theme. It's not deliberate on my end. It's just the way that some of these numbers work out. You will notice a theme in the fact that I talked about Jakob, I talked about Mark Williams, and now I'm going to talk about another big man who I think is a little bit underrated. And that is Rudy Gobert. In Minnesota, Gobert did not have the best season at all last season. We're well aware of that. His block numbers dropped pretty sizably. Is that a one-year thing? Is that a scheme thing? I don't know. His rank is 67. Part of the fact that his rank drops down is a poor free throw percentage, but we work around that in head-to-head leagues. And again, Gobert is a guy that I never see go earlier than pick 60. I think he's got not high top 50, but I think he's got top 50 value. Around 49, 48, that sort of a mark, right? If it's in the right situation on the right team and you don't grab him there, you don't pick him in round 4, you sort of wait and you get a little bit of, snag a little bit of value, if it makes sense on your team around this area. You've stacked up some guards in round 2, 3, 4. You got good free throws. Gobert, you can absorb it. You maybe got a blocks guy in round 4 or 5. You Gobert back on the end of that in round 6, maybe round 7 he falls, and you extract a little bit of value out of it. I don't think that Towns is necessarily impacting his block numbers. I don't think it's got anything to do with it. Rebounds, maybe. I just think Gobert, like, he might be rooted. He might be cooked. He could be. But the way that I'm projecting him out at the moment just suggests that 67 just might have pushed a little bit too far in the opposite direction. We'll go to Indiana now, back towards the back end of your draft. And the Shark, Bruce Brown, has a Yahoo rank of 126. I think that he's got an outside chance of sneaking into the top 100. I think that he's going to play more minutes than last season. I do think his assist numbers will probably fall away, but he's going to start. He's going to play 30 plus. He can get some rebounds, some assists, some steals, some blocks. He hits some threes. Pretty strong efficiency numbers. He's a guy that, again, you just... Rank 126 suggests that he's a bench player, and I don't think that's the case. I think he's more of your 9th or 10th guy. Now, in a lot of drafts, I see him go in those spots, but my drafts, my mock drafts that I do, are often working at a very different frequency to a lot of other drafts. I've heard of people telling me the wildest stuff that happens in their leagues. Wild. Like some of the stuff you wouldn't believe in terms of the single draft outcomes that happen. But in most of mine, Brown goes in round 10, probably round 9. But he's going to go in round 11 or round 12, or to spoil a later part of the show, literally undrafted. And that should not be the case. Is this next player my biggest sleeper for the season? Maybe, but I don't think it is anymore. And that is Jordan Poole in Washington. I have been telling you that I am massive on Poole all season. I have said that I would have no compunction about picking Jordy in round 3. Usually I don't have to. He's ranked at 48. Now, because there are a lot of reactive people in the world, really, they would have seen that Jordy dropped 41 yesterday and go, all right, Jordan Poole's on, let's go. There will be plenty of others, though, that still hate the bloke and will not draft him high. He, to me, is a top 30-ish player. Maybe it doesn't quite work out to top 30 and he's 33rd or 34th or whatever. He's going to score a lot. That's valuable. He's going to get to the line. He got 15 to 16 from the line yesterday. That is an unbelievable number. It's not going to happen every game, but he's an unbelievable free throw shooter. This is a 3rd-round player, not a guy that's bordering on 5th round. And weeks ago, you could have got him in round 6 in some situations. Maybe not many, but some. This is what their latest change yesterday. He's at 48. Watch how high you go. But top 30, yeah, absolutely for me, Jordan Poole is a top 30 fantasy player for this season. And that's really points or categories. He might actually have a little bit more value in categories than he does in points, but it is for both of those. Today's episode is also brought to you by the JACE case. JACE Medical is providing the JACE case to us, or providing the option for us with JACE case, so that we are in a situation where we need urgent medical treatment. We are prepared. There are so many areas of uncertainty happen around the world. There's fires, there's hurricanes, tornadoes going through Florida, earthquakes can happen anytime, mudslides, landslides, whatever it is. There are so many things that can happen at any point, and not even to mention the drug supply chain issues that we've had over the last 12 to 18 months. Getting a JACE case, which has these life-saving antibiotics, and also got a new thing where you can add on some other medications that might be more suited to what your family actually needs, means that in case of that emergency where you can't get to medical care, you've got what you need at home, which could be, honestly, a matter of life or death. It's really as simple as that. So, go to jacemedical.com, enter the code LOCKEDON at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code LOCKEDON at JACE Medical, JACE Medical.com. So let's go through the rest of these guys on this list. How many have we got left? I think we've got the top 5. Yeah, I think it's the top 5 that's left. Let's go to Atlanta. Onyeka Okongwu. He's ranked at 106. I think that me saying that he's top 70 is marginally conservative. If he gets the starting job at any point, he will provide top 40-ish numbers from that point on, would be my guess. There might be some frustrations early on with minutes. I think that they are working on playing him a little alongside Clint Capella, but a Capella trade could happen, a minute split could happen. I think that even if you don't think Okongwu's top 70, fine, that's okay. There is over 30, almost 40 spots of value, I believe, in where Okongwu's ranked versus where I think he will be. And, again, this doesn't mean grab him at 65. Grab Pirtle there. But it means that if you're looking at him in the 80s, go for it. If he's there in the 90s, don't hesitate. I think that he is currently, even though there is uncertainty, right? What is the role? I don't know. There's uncertainty. I just think you want to have an opportunity to get Okongwu onto your team, and we'll see what develops. And I just think there is, not only do I project him at the moment to be top 70, this could be where we're looking at February onwards where he's a top 30 player. I think that is legitimately possible. Obviously not a high scorer, but different areas of fantasy ability that he does provide. The next one is, again, are you seeing a pattern? You should, because the next one's a center as well, and his name is Daniel Gafford. Gafford is ranked at 102. The Wizards' centers are Daniel Gafford, Taj Gibson, and Mike Muscala. Gafford will play almost surely as close to 30 minutes as foul trouble will allow, and he might get 34 of them. Muscala was pretty good in the game yesterday. He did go off, but at 102, Gafford doesn't even need 30 minutes to smash through 102. This is another situation where a few days before the season started, Nick Claxton got ranked at 120 over on Yahoo. Hey, speaking of Nick Claxton, if you're in a deeper league, Day'Ron Sharpe is an unbelievable stash. Unbelievable. Bloke's tearing it up. Absolute side note that I didn't mean to include in this show. But there you go, Day'Ron Sharpe. Gafford, Claxton moved to 120th and was a clear top 50 player. Claxton was actually almost on this list as well this season. I think he's maybe a little bit undervalued. But we liked what Claxton could do because A, he's a very good rim protector who was a big field goal percentage guy who could rebound and have okay scoring, but not dreadful. But we knew that he was going to start at center with not much competition. What about you, Danny? Anything ring a bell there? Yeah, it does. Is Gafford great? No, absolutely not. But is there anybody at the moment who is pushing for those minutes? No. He honestly will have multiple 4-block games this season, multiple of them. He could hit 70% of his shots. He could get 9, 8 rebounds, whatever. There's enough value here. But 102, again, they're showing you, a lot of the centers are pushing down, they're too low by 20, 30 spots. Now, in points leagues, Okongwu, Gafford, Gobert, Pirtle, they're not quite as valuable. They're still valuable. Mark Williams, they're still valuable. They're not quite that valuable. So the big gap that you see between a Yahoo rank and my projected value of them is squished in a little bit for points leagues. I still think they're valuable, though, at those rank spots. Let's move away from talking about very, very tall people and talk about another person who is still tall but not as tall. What a great segue that is. And we're going rookies. We're going Pistons, and we're going Ausar Thompson. He's ranked at 134. No, wrong. Or maybe wrong, I don't know. We'll see. It's too low. He doesn't need to be there. He will be, for all accounts and purposes, the starter. Will he shoot poorly? Write it down, lock it in. It's going to happen. He's going to have some bad shooting numbers. Will he shoot poorly on enough volume for it to matter significantly? Probably not. Could he average 5 rebounds, 4 assists, 1.5 steals, 1 block? Yes. Could he hit 2 threes with 13 points? Yes. That is not the makings of an 11th round player. It's a 9th or 10th round player. If we didn't know that he was going to start, and we don't know 100%, but if we didn't have any inkling that it was, if he didn't start, it would be a gigantic upset, which is where we're at now, then no, I wouldn't really take him around this mark. I would have bumped him down significantly. But he might even play more than I'm anticipating him to. His shot might be further along than I think. And he and his brother, a man who's not on this list, have some of the most unbelievable fantasy skill sets that we've seen come into the league in a few years. And if it realizes even close to that, well, he'll beat that number, I think, pretty clearly. It's a rookie. There's always risks, right? But there's enough buffer in that for me to make that selection, or for me to think he's going to hit that mark. Guess what it's time for me to talk about? Yeah, it's another center. And this guy, the Yahoo ranks suggest that Steven Adams should not be drafted in a standard league, which I have my pushbacks on a lot of things that happen. People can push back against me as well. Absolutely fine. We all healthily debate this stuff. I have been told a few conflicting things about how Yahoo's ranking is done, but the last thing I heard was, hey, they were told push it towards points. Well, putting Steven Adams at 159 in a points league makes 0 sense. Absolutely none at all. In a category league, if you want to strictly adhere to a ranking system that values all 9 categories with Z-scores, then he probably sits in this area because he shoots 30% from the line and he doesn't hit threes, which makes that overall ranking look, oh, he's the 190th ranked player, which is clearly also not accurate. But I don't know what system they're using to say that Steven Adams shouldn't be drafted in any 12-team format. Nonsense, foolish, a blight on society. Maybe that's going too far. Anyway, Steve Adams in a points league and Steve Adams in a head-to-head league, because remember, in a head-to-head league, we are a punting type situation most of the time. He should be a top 100 player. Upped his assist numbers, good steals, okay blocks, very good field goals, but one of the strongest rebounders you will find. There's absolutely no reason for him to be considered undraftable in fantasy leagues. Undraftable. Before I get into the remainder of this list, I say remainder of this list, before we get into the last player on this list, I do want to just give a couple of honorable mentions of some guys that I didn't include here that I could have. One of those was Paul Reed. One of those is Zion Williamson, who I think might be a bit of a sleeper. Nick Claxton, I mentioned earlier. Josh Hart, Emmanuel Quickley, a guy that is sort of with a little bit of extra value in them that could have made this list. I just didn't include them. Did I say Kyle Anderson? I think I did. For various reasons. Zion, obviously injury risk. Ja Morant, suspension is an issue for sure. Paul Reed, uncertainty on role, significant uncertainty. Nick Claxton, maybe it's just not as good as I think. So I just didn't include them on that list. But I just wanted to mention a few names there. But let's go to the number one player, which is definitely a risky decision for me to say that he is a sleeper, but it is not a risky decision to draft him where he is currently ranked, and that is Ben Simmons. Simmons is ranked at 139. This is round 12 territory. Is it? It's close enough. Yeah, it's round 12. Round 12. Your second last pick. For a starting point guard who might let's say worst case average 10, 7, 7, 1.3 steals, 0.7 blocks. Worst case. I think that, again, like a lot of these guys, the team's got to make sense. You've got to build up the stats or punt them or whatever. But you do that in head-to-head. And it doesn't mean that you pick Ben Simmons in the top 85. Doesn't mean that you have to pick him at all. But for somebody in your league, they're going to get value on getting Simmons at 100, 110, 120. Does people hate Ben Simmons? Yeah, go for it. I get it. Do I actually like Ben Simmons? Not particularly. But I'm taking a look at the numbers, the role, the absolute value sitting at 139, knowing that I can't get assists anywhere near that at that spot, nowhere near it. And again, if I say top 85, I could go higher. I could say top 70. If I say top 85, you don't take him there. You get him at 110, 120, or 100. Eliminate risk and still get upside. There is just a massive gap, I think, between Simmons' rank and what his actual production will realize for us. And that goes for points leagues as well. You might not like the idea of taking Ben Simmons because you dislike him as a player or you don't trust anything about him, and I get it. But that's a free pick in round 11 or round 12. It's free. It doesn't cost you a single thing. So you do it. And that is that part of the show. In the last couple of minutes here, I just wanted to go through some guys that I looked at over on Yahoo. And this is not always the best indicator of these numbers because we know there's some weird stuff that goes on. But we have not started the season yet. Drafts have happened in a lot of the, obviously for these numbers to be real. Drafts have happened. And these players, I've got about 15 of them, are currently available in over 20% of Yahoo leagues. And I think every single one of these guys should be considered at the bare minimum a top 125 player. And you probably should have them on a roster. Now, you know my thought process in round 11, round 12. We're taking some swings on guys we don't want. Guess who we don't want? Harrison Barnes. We don't want to take him. And there's some of those sort of boring-ish type guys here, but they make sense to me to not be on waiver wires. And you've done your draft, some of the injuries, slot them into IR, grab some of these guys. There's just a million of these guys, there's 15 of them, who I think are worth me mentioning. So let's talk about them. Paul Reed is rostered in 43% of leagues. You are in a league and Paul Reed is on your waiver wire. You add him, please. And I'm not going to repeat that for every player, but every player I'm going to end it by thinking at least, and you're going to have my brain in your head. Not my brain in your head. You're going to have my voice in your head saying, add him. Kyle Anderson's at 47%. The major reason there is that Jaden McDaniels is injured and may not play opening night, so Kyle Anderson might start. And that's useful. Steven Adams, who I just talked about him, he's available in 39% of leagues, so people have followed that rank and not drafted him. I don't think Herb Jones has got great upside. Said that many, many times. But they are banged up. Alvarado, Nance, Marshall, Murphy, they're all out. Jones is available 35% of leagues. Should not be. Emmanuel Quickley is available 32% of leagues. Now, I've told you my concerns about the Knicks and playing the 240 game. Like, how do these blokes get enough minutes? But Quickley shouldn't sit on any waiver wire. That's insane. Mike Conley is 71% rostered. Now, Mike Conley is not exciting. Mike Conley has no upside. Mike Conley is old. Mike Conley will miss games. There's absolutely no excuse for him to be on the waiver wire in that many leagues. My mate Ausar Thompson is available in, 28% of leagues? Huh? Go on at him. If you are the person who has stumbled upon this show 4 days out before the NBA season, you go, oh, Ausar's on my waiver wire. Go on at him, please. Josh Hart is 25% available. Much like Quickly, the minutes might be an issue, but it's a good rebounder who scores, can be efficient-ish. Some steals. Shouldn't be on the wire. Trey Murphy's an interesting one. He's not going to play, but that is a bloke who could hit top 70 numbers. So you want him, you stash him, you sit him on your IL, your IR plus or whatever. He's 24% available. Two of these next three are absolutely egregious errors by people. Zach Collins is 22% available, and if there is one thing to take out of this entire show, you can disregard sleepers, you can tell me I'm wrong, I don't care. If Zach Collins is available in your league, get your finger out of your ass and go and click on the button to add him. There is zero excuse for this. This should be at 102%. That is how convinced I am he should be rostered. Nonsense that he is on the wire. 22% available. I've been telling you that Zach Collins is going to start for this team for months. Months. Go and add him. And the last two are guys that I talked about. Bruce Brown is 21% available. What? And the last one is Okongwu, who's apparently also 20% available. Huh? Simmons is also on this list. He was 17% available. Go and add him as well. And that is the final sleepers show that hopefully, despite some of the sleeper term and that being not particularly useful all the time, but this show was useful, I think, in just telling you some of the blokes that I think are probably a little bit misevaluated. Follow this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and on the Odyssey app. And on YouTube, I think you know what to do. You thumb it up and you leave your comments down below. Guys, we are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.